They said it was impossible. 1,000-yard shot through morning fog against a moving target, with iron sights on a rifle older than most of the men standing there. The Navy's best snipers had already failed. 3 attempts, 3 misses. And then she stepped forward with her father's World War II M1 Garand, and everything changed. Before we continue, drop a comment below telling us what city or country you're watching from. Her name was Sergeant Maya Blackwood, 29 years old, born and raised in the rain-soaked forests of Olympic Peninsula, Washington. She grew up in a cabin where the mist never fully lifted, where her father taught her that patience wasn't just a virtue, it was survival. He was a Marine Corps veteran who came home from Vietnam with 2 things: a Bronze Star he never talked about and an M1 Garand he cleaned every Sunday morning. Maya's childhood memories weren't of dolls or playgrounds. They were of her father's calloused hands guiding hers along the wooden stock, teaching her to feel the rifle's heartbeat, to breathe with it, to become part of its purpose. He called her his little mist walker because even as a child, she could move through the fog without making a sound, tracking deer through terrain that swallowed grown men whole. When she was 16, her father died of lung cancer, the Agent Orange finally catching up to him. His last words to her were simple: "The mist doesn't hide you, Maya. It reveals who you really are." She buried him with military honors and kept the rifle. It was all she had left of him, and it was all she needed. The United States Navy didn't know what to make of Maya Blackwood when she showed up at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California, requesting entry into the Advanced Sniper Course. She wasn't a SEAL. She was Army, a designated marksman with the 75th Ranger Regiment, who had completed 2 deployments in Afghanistan with a confirmed kill record that made even the instructors pause. But she was a woman, and she carried an antique rifle like it was sacred, and the Navy SEALs didn't take kindly to either. The course director, Commander Vincent Cross, was a legend in the sniper community. 47 years old, silver-haired, with eyes like chipped ice and a reputation for breaking anyone who didn't meet his impossible standards, he looked at Maya's application with the same expression he'd give a child asking to fly a fighter jet. "Ranger tab doesn't mean squat here, Sergeant," he said, not bothering to look up from the paperwork. "This isn't about qualifying targets at 300 meters. This is about making shots that don't exist, shots that defy physics, and we do it with modern equipment, not museum pieces." Maya stood at attention, her father's rifle slung across her back in a worn leather case. "With respect, sir, I'm not here to use your equipment. I'm here to prove that skill transcends technology." Cross finally looked up, and for a moment, something almost like amusement flickered across his face. "You think you're going to pass my course with that relic?" "I think, sir, that if I can't, then I don't deserve to be here." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You know what we call soldiers who cling to the past, Blackwood? Dead weight. But I'll tell you what. You want in my course? Fine. But the first time you fail a qualification shoot, you're gone. No second chances, no appeals, and you leave that antique at home." Maya's jaw tightened. "The rifle stays with me, sir. It's part of who I am." "Then you better hope it's enough." The Advanced Sniper Course was 22 weeks of hell, designed to filter out anyone who didn't belong. Of the 32 students who started, only 8 would graduate, and historically, none of them had been women. The other candidates were all Navy SEALs, Marine Force Recon, or Delta operators, men who had already proven themselves in the most elite units in the world. They looked at Maya like she was a curiosity, something that didn't quite fit, an anomaly that would correct itself soon enough. Most didn't bother learning her name. They called her Ranger Girl or the Collector because of her vintage rifle, and when they thought she couldn't hear, they called her worse. The training began before dawn every day, with physical conditioning that pushed the human body to its absolute limit. Ruck marches with 80-pound packs through soft sand, ocean swims in 60-degree water, obstacle courses designed by sadists. Maya kept pace, her body lean and hardened from years of ranger training, but it was clear from the beginning that the instructors were watching her differently. They waited for her to fail, anticipated it, almost seemed disappointed when she didn't. The actual shooting curriculum was where the real separation began. Modern sniper systems, Ballistic computers, rangefinders, wind meters, night vision optics. Everything that made a modern sniper a technological marvel. And Maya couldn't use any of it with her M1 Garand. The rifle was a masterpiece of mid-century engineering, semi-automatic, 30-06 Springfield. But it had been designed for a different kind of warfare. No scope, just iron sights. No adjustable stock, no bipod, no suppressor. Just wood and steel and the weight of history. The other students used custom-built .338 Lapua Magnums and 300 Winchester Magnums with optics that cost more than cars. They punched paper at 1,000 yards with computer assistance and smiled like it was easy. Maya had to calculate everything in her head, read the wind by feel, estimate distance by sight, and trust her instincts over data. And for the first 3 weeks, she struggled. Commander Cross made it his personal mission to break her. During range qualifications, he would stand directly behind her, his voice a low growl in her ear. "You're 3 inches left, Blackwood. That's a miss. In the field, that's a dead teammate." When she adjusted and fired again, he'd shake his head. "Too slow. The target's already gone. You're thinking like a historian, not a sniper." The other students watched these exchanges with a mixture of pity and satisfaction. Maya was the outsider, the one who didn't belong, and her struggles validated their presence. But what they didn't see was what Maya was learning. Every failure was data. Every miss was a lesson. Her father had taught her that the mist revealed truth, and she was beginning to understand what he meant. Modern snipers relied on technology to compensate for variables. Maya was learning to become the variable. She stopped trying to compete with their equipment and started competing with their assumptions. While they calculated wind speed with digital meters, she watched the grass move, the way heat shimmered off distant rocks, the flight patterns of birds. While they adjusted turrets on their scopes, she adjusted her breathing, her heartbeat, her connection to the rifle. The M1 Garand became an extension of her body in a way that no modern weapon could replicate. She knew its weight, its balance, its rhythm. 8 rounds in the end-block clip, a distinctive ping when it ejected. No magazine changes, no fiddling with equipment, just pure, simple lethality. And slowly, impossibly, she started to improve. By week 7, Maya had stopped missing. Her groupings at 500 yards were tighter than most of the class at 300. At 800 yards, she was consistently hitting center mass while the SEALs with their magnified optics were struggling with wind calls. Commander Cross stopped hovering over her shoulder. He didn't praise her, but he didn't criticize her either, and in his world, silence was the highest compliment. The other students began to notice. A few started asking her questions about wind reading, about instinctive shooting, about how she made shots without looking through a scope. She answered honestly, shared what her father had taught her, and slowly, grudgingly, some of them began to respect her. But not all of them. There was a group of 3 SEALs who saw Maya's success as a personal insult. Their leader was Petty Officer First Class Derek Mason, a 34-year-old Texan with a squared-off jaw and a chest full of medals. He'd been a SEAL for 12 years, had deployments in Iraq and Syria, and he believed with absolute certainty that women had no place in special operations. He never said it directly to Maya's face, but he didn't have to. His contempt was clear in every glance, every dismissive comment, every time he accidentally bumped into her gear or cut her off in the chow line. During a field exercise in week 9, Mason's sabotage became overt. The class was conducting a long-range reconnaissance patrol in the mountains east of San Diego, a 72-hour evolution where students had to navigate to observation posts, identify targets, and radio in firing solutions without being detected. Maya was paired with another student, a quiet Marine named Rodriguez, and they'd been in position for 18 hours when she noticed something wrong with her rifle. The M1's gas system had been tampered with. Someone had loosened the gas cylinder plug, which would cause a catastrophic malfunction if she tried to fire. It wasn't obvious, and it wasn't accidental. Rodriguez saw the look on her face and whispered, "What's wrong?" Maya showed him the rifle. He examined it in the dim light of their hide site, and his expression went cold. "That could have blown up in your hands." "I know. You need to report this." Maya thought about it. She could report it, start an investigation, point fingers. But she had no proof of who had done it, And raising accusations would only reinforce the narrative that she couldn't handle the pressure, that she was looking for excuses. Instead, she tightened the gas cylinder plug, checked the rest of the rifle's components, and settled back into position. "We've got a mission to complete," she said quietly. Rodriguez nodded slowly, new respect in his eyes. "Roger that." The final examination for the advanced sniper course was legendary in the special operations community. It was called the Ghost Shot, and only about half of the students who made it that far actually passed. The scenario was brutal in its simplicity. A single target at an unknown distance under field conditions, with one shot to make it count. Students weren't told when the test would occur, only that it would happen during the final week of the course. The target could be at any range from 800 to 1,200 yards, in any weather, at any time of day or night. Miss the shot, and you failed the entire course. No second chances, no explanations. The test came on a Tuesday morning in the 20th week, when the marine layer had rolled in thick off the Pacific Ocean. The visibility was less than 200 yards, the kind of fog that turned the world into a gray void where sound became unreliable and distance became a guess. Commander Cross assembled the remaining 12 students at the range just after dawn. Maya could barely see the instructor platform 30 feet away. Cross's voice cut through the mist like a blade. "Today is your final examination. Somewhere in that fog is a target. Your job is to find it, range it, and kill it. You'll go in order of class ranking. You get one shot, fail, and you're done." He read off the names. Maya was 10th on the list. The first student, a SEAL named Thompson, stepped to the line with his .338 Lapua Magnum. He spent 5 minutes glassing the fog with his scope, trying to penetrate the white wall before finally taking a shot at what he thought he saw. The radio crackled. "Miss!" Thompson's face went blank and he walked off the line without a word. The second student, another SEAL, didn't even attempt the shot. He looked through his scope, shook his head and said, "I can't acquire the target, sir." "Then you fail," Cross said flatly. One by one, the students attempted the impossible shot. Some fired blindly into the fog, hoping for luck. Others tried to use their rangefinders and ballistic computers, but the mist defeated the laser returns, gave them garbage data. By the time the 9th student stepped down, 7 had missed, and 2 had refused to shoot. Maya stepped to the line with her father's M1 Garand. She could feel every eye on her, could hear the whispers. She can't even see through the fog. How's she supposed to hit anything? This is where the museum piece fails her. Derek Mason's voice was louder than the others. "Gonna be a long walk home, Ranger Girl." Commander Cross raised an eyebrow. "You have 5 minutes to acquire and engage the target, Sergeant Blackwood. Your time starts now." Maya didn't look through the iron sights yet. Instead, she closed her eyes and listened. The fog dampened sound, but it didn't eliminate it. She could hear the ocean waves 2 miles to the west, could feel the wind direction on her face, light and inconsistent, swirling. She opened her eyes and studied the mist itself, watching how it moved, where it thinned, where it gathered. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "The mist doesn't hide you, Maya. It reveals who you really are." And suddenly, she understood. The fog wasn't the obstacle. The fog was information. She dropped to one knee and shouldered the M1, feeling its familiar weight settle into her body. She wasn't trying to see through the mist. She was reading it, understanding it, becoming part of it. 300 yards out, there was a slight disturbance in the fog pattern, a place where the white seemed to eddy differently, as if something solid was disrupting the flow. She watched it for 30 seconds, saw the pattern repeat, and knew. That's where the target was. But knowing where it was didn't tell her the exact distance, and with iron sights, precision was everything. She looked at the grass at her feet, saw which direction the blades bent. She felt the temperature of the air, noticed how the fog was slightly warmer at ground level. She calculated the angle of the sun behind the overcast, estimated the time the fog had been present, understood how that affected visibility gradients. And then she did something that made several of the watching students gasp. She stood up, stepped 5 feet to her left, and dropped prone in a completely different shooting position. From this angle, the fog thinned just slightly, a corridor of visibility no more than 2 feet wide that her original position hadn't revealed. Through that narrow window, for just a fraction of a second, she saw it. The silhouette of a man-sized target, partially obscured, roughly 950 yards away. Maya's breathing slowed. Her heartbeat dropped to 50 beats per minute. She aligned the iron sights, made the microscopic adjustments for wind and distance that existed only in her muscle memory, and felt the rifle become part of her. Her father's words, "The rifle doesn't fire the bullet, Maya. You do. The rifle is just the bridge between your intention and reality." She exhaled slowly, found that perfect moment between heartbeats where her body was absolutely still, and squeezed the trigger. The M1 Garand roared, the sound swallowed almost immediately by the fog. The recoil was sharp and familiar, and Maya rode it, kept her sight picture, watched through the iron sights as the fog swirled. For 5 seconds, there was only silence, and then the radio crackled. "Hit, center mass." The range went absolutely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Commander Cross stared at the radio in his hand like it had just told him the sun had stopped rising. Derek Mason's mouth hung open. The other students looked at Maya like she'd just performed a magic trick, something that violated the laws of physics and common sense. Maya stood up slowly, saved her rifle, and walked back to the line. Her face was calm, but inside, her heart was racing. She'd done it. Not just made the shot, but proved something deeper, something her father had always known. That technology was a tool, but skill was eternal. That the fundamentals mattered more than the equipment. That patience and understanding could overcome any advantage. Commander Cross finally found his voice. "How?" he asked, and for the first time since the course began, there was no edge to his tone, only genuine curiosity. Maya looked at the M1 Garand in her hands. "My father taught me that every environment tells a story, sir. The fog wasn't hiding the target. It was showing me where to look. I just had to learn its language." Cross nodded slowly, and something shifted in his expression. Respect, real and undeniable. "That," he said quietly, "is what a sniper is supposed to be." The remaining 2 students took their shots. One missed, the other hit, but only after Maya had shown them what to look for, where the corridor of visibility was. When the test was over, 9 students had failed, and 3 had passed. Maya, Rodriguez, and a SEAL named Williams. They were the only ones who would graduate. The graduation ceremony was held 2 weeks later, on a clear September morning at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. Families were present, dignitaries, active duty personnel. Maya stood at attention in her Army dress uniform, the M1 Garand held at port arms, while Commander Cross spoke about the nature of excellence and the price of mastery. When he called her name, Maya stepped forward. Cross looked her in the eye, and for the first time he smiled. "Sergeant Maya Blackwood, for exceptional performance under impossible conditions, for demonstrating that the warrior spirit transcends equipment and ego, and for reminding us all what it means to be a sniper, you are hereby recognized as a graduate of the Naval Special Warfare Advanced Sniper Course." He pinned the qualification badge to her uniform, and then did something unprecedented. He saluted her. Not the obligatory salute of rank, but a genuine gesture of respect between warriors. Maya returned the salute, her throat tight with emotion. In the audience, she saw Rodriguez and Williams standing, applauding. She saw other SEALs, men who had doubted her, joining in. And she saw Derek Mason standing in the back, his face unreadable, but his hands slowly coming together in reluctant acknowledgement. After the ceremony, Maya found Commander Cross near the instructor building. "Sir, can I ask you something?" Cross turned. "Speak freely, Sergeant." "When you set up that final test in the fog, at that distance, with that visibility, did you think anyone would make the shot?" Cross was quiet for a moment, then shook his head. "Honestly, no. I thought I'd fail the entire class. I designed that test to be impossible because I wanted to see how you all handled failure. But you did something I didn't anticipate." "What's that, sir?" "You changed the rules. You didn't accept the limitations I imposed. You found a solution that existed outside my expectations. That's what makes a great sniper, Blackwood. Not the ability to make hard shots. The ability to make impossible shots possible." Maya nodded, understanding. Cross extended his hand and she shook it. "Where are you headed next?" he asked. "Back to my unit, sir. The Rangers are deploying to Syria in 6 weeks. They're lucky to have you." "Thank you, sir." As Maya walked away, carrying her father's rifle, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Not because she'd proven herself to the Navy, or to Commander Cross, or to the men who had doubted her, but because she'd proven something to herself, that the lessons her father had taught her in the mist-covered forests of Washington were real, that patience, understanding, and connection to purpose mattered more than any technology, that she was truly a mist walker. 6 months later, Maya was in Syria, embedded with a joint task force conducting counter-terrorism operations against high-value targets. Her reputation from the sniper course had preceded her, and for the first time in her career, she wasn't seen as an anomaly. She was seen as an asset. The mission was a hostage rescue in a compound outside Raqqa. American aid workers, 2 of them, held by a splinter terrorist cell. The assault team was a mix of Rangers, SEALs, and Delta operators. Maya was assigned as the primary Overwatch sniper, responsible for covering the assault force from a building 800 meters away. The operation was scheduled for just before dawn, when the terrorists would be least alert, but intelligence suggested there was a sentry posted on the compound's roof, someone with a radio who could alert the others and cause the hostages to be executed before the assault team even breached the gate. That sentry had to be eliminated silently, simultaneously with the assault team's movement, or the entire operation would collapse. Maya set up her position on the 3rd floor of a bombed-out apartment building. Her M1 Garand rested on a makeshift bipod made from rubble. The distance was 847 yards, the wind was gusting unpredictably, and the light was the murky gray of pre-dawn that made target identification nearly impossible. Her spotter was a SEAL named Lieutenant Parker, a veteran operator who had graduated sniper school 2 years earlier. He was using a modern spotting scope with night vision and thermal imaging, could see the target clearly. "Target is on the northeast corner of the roof," Parker whispered. "Male, mid-20s, AK-47, scanning north. You've got maybe a 3-second window when the assault team hits the gate." Maya looked through her iron sights, saw only shadows and shapes. The target was invisible to her without magnification. Parker sensed her hesitation. "Blackwood, I can feed you the corrections." "Elevation, windage, I've got the data." Maya shook her head. "Thermal doesn't account for mirage or air density shifts at this distance. The data will be close, but close isn't good enough." "Then what's your plan?" Maya watched the sky, saw the first hint of light starting to break through. In 10 minutes the light would shift, the thermals would change, the window would open. "I wait," she said simply. Parker looked at her like she was crazy, but he didn't argue. He'd heard the stories about the ghost shot, about how she'd made the impossible happen. 7 minutes later, Maya saw it. The light changed, just a fraction, and suddenly the shapes on the distant roof gained definition. She could see the sentry now, not clearly, but enough. And more importantly, she could see the wind patterns in the dust and smoke between her position and the target. She felt it, understood it, knew exactly how the bullet would fly. The radio clicked twice. The assault team was moving. Maya's breathing slowed. Her heart rate dropped. The M1 Garand settled into her shoulder like an old friend returning home. She found the space between heartbeats, saw the sentry turn his head to look south, away from the assault team. One shot, one chance, one life to save 2 others. She fired. The M1's distinctive crack echoed across the Syrian dawn, and 847 yards away, the sentry dropped without a sound. Parker stared through his spotting scope, then looked at Maya with something close to awe. Dead center headshot, through iron sights, in bad light. "Are you even human?" Maya ejected the en-bloc clip, reloaded, and settled back into position. Just a girl who learned to walk through the mist. The hostages were recovered without casualties, the assault team extracted cleanly, and by the time the sun was fully up, they were back at the forward operating base. Maya broke down her rifle, cleaned it methodically, and placed it back in its worn leather case. Lieutenant Parker approached her as she was packing her gear. "Blackwood, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer." Maya looked up. Go ahead. That shot you made this morning. The ghost shot back at Coronado. The shots you've been making for weeks out here. Are you actually calculating all that data in your head, or is it something else? Maya thought about how to answer. My father used to say that shooting isn't math. It's conversation. You're talking to the wind, to the distance, to the target, and if you listen carefully enough, they tell you where the bullet needs to go. Parker shook his head slowly. That's either the most profound thing I've ever heard, or the most insane. Maybe both, Maya said with a slight smile. But it works. Parker extended his hand. You're the best shooter I've ever worked with, and I've worked with guys who have 50 confirmed kills. I don't know how you do what you do, but I'm glad you're on our side. Maya shook his hand. Thanks, Parker. As he walked away, Maya looked down at her father's M1 Garand, the wood worn smooth by decades of handling, the steel still solid despite its age. She thought about Commander Cross asking her how she'd made the ghost shot. She thought about all the people who had doubted her, who had seen the old rifle and assumed it was a handicap, and she realized something her father had known all along. The rifle wasn't special because it was powerful or advanced. It was special because it demanded excellence from its user. Modern rifles compensated for human weakness. The M1 Garand revealed it, and in revealing weakness, it forced you to overcome it, to become better, to become more than just a person pulling a trigger. It made you a sniper in the truest sense, someone who understood that every shot was a conversation between intention and reality, and that technology could assist that conversation but never replace it. 3 years after Syria, Maya returned to the Naval Special Warfare Center, but this time as an instructor. Commander Cross had personally requested her, and the Navy had agreed, making her the first female sniper instructor in the program's history. She taught the Advanced Sniper course using both modern equipment and traditional methods, showing students that understanding the fundamentals was more important than memorizing ballistic charts. She became known for a particular exercise she conducted during week 10 of the course. She would take students to the range on foggy mornings, give them the best equipment the military had to offer, and ask them to engage a target at 1,000 yards. Most would struggle, unable to penetrate the mist with their optics. And then Maya would hand them iron-sighted rifles, old M14s and M1 Garands from the armory, and show them how to read the fog instead of fighting it. Many students failed the exercise at first, frustrated by the lack of technology, but the ones who passed, the ones who learned to trust their instincts over their equipment, became some of the best snipers in the world. Derek Mason, the SEAL who had sabotaged her rifle years earlier, showed up at the instructor building one afternoon. Maya was cleaning rifles in the armory when he walked in. He looked older, harder, with new lines around his eyes. "Sergeant Blackwood," he said formally. Maya looked up, her expression neutral. "Petty Officer Mason." There was a long silence. Mason shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "I need to say something, and then I'll leave you alone." "Go ahead." "During the course years ago, I tampered with your rifle. I loosened the gas cylinder plug during the field exercise. Could have killed you if you'd fired it without checking." Maya nodded slowly. She'd always known it was him. "I know." Mason looked surprised. "You knew? Why didn't you report it?" "Because reporting it wouldn't have changed anything. You would have denied it, there was no proof, and it would have just reinforced everyone's belief that I couldn't handle the pressure. So you just let it go?" Maya set down the rifle she'd been cleaning and looked Mason in the eye. "I didn't let it go. I learned from it. You taught me that in this world, there are people who will try to make you fail because they're afraid of what your success means. You taught me that I had to be better than perfect, because anything less would be used as proof that I didn't belong. So thank you." Mason looked like he'd been punched. "I don't deserve your thanks. I deserve a court-martial." "Maybe, but that's not my decision to make. You have to live with what you did. I moved on years ago." Mason nodded, his face unreadable. "For what it's worth, that ghost shot you made, that was the most incredible piece of shooting I've ever seen. And I've been doing this for 20 years. It wasn't the rifle," Maya said quietly. "It was never about the rifle. I know that now." Mason turned to leave, then paused at the door. "They call you Mist Walker, you know. The students. They say you can see things nobody else can, make shots that don't exist. They say you're the best instructor this place has ever had." Maya smiled slightly. My father would have liked that. After Mason left, Maya returned to cleaning the rifles, but her mind was far away, back in the forests of Washington, watching her father move through the fog with that same old M1 Garand. She understood now what he'd been teaching her all those years. It wasn't about the shooting. It was about seeing clearly in a world that was designed to obscure truth. About trusting yourself when everything around you said you were wrong. About understanding that excellence wasn't a destination, but a way of moving through the world. 5 years later, Maya retired from active duty with the rank of Master Sergeant. She'd served 22 years, conducted 4 combat deployments, and trained over 300 snipers who went on to serve in every conflict zone America was engaged in. She returned to Washington, to the Olympic Peninsula, to the cabin where she'd grown up. The mist was still there, thick and eternal, wrapping the forest in white silence. She reopened her father's workshop, the one where he'd taught her to clean rifles and track deer. But instead of keeping it private, she turned it into a shooting school. Not a tactical school or a military prep course, but a place where people could learn the fundamentals of marksmanship the way her father had taught her. With patience, with respect, with understanding. Students came from all over the country, civilians and military alike, drawn by her reputation. She taught them on old bolt-action rifles with iron sights, made them calculate wind by watching grass and feeling temperature shifts. She took them into the forest on foggy mornings and showed them how to see. And occasionally, when a student showed real promise, real dedication, she would bring out her father's M1 Garand. She'd let them hold it, feel its weight, understand its history, and then she'd take them to the range on a morning when the mist was thick, when visibility was almost zero, and she'd set up a target at 1,000 yards. "Can you see it?" she'd ask. "No, ma'am," they'd usually answer. "Good. Then stop trying to see it with your eyes." She'd guide them through the process her father had taught her, the one she'd refined through years of combat and training. How to read the environment, how to trust instinct over data, how to become part of the shot instead of forcing it. And when they finally made that impossible shot through the fog, when they hit the target they couldn't see with equipment that wasn't supposed to work, she'd see their faces transform. Because they'd learned what she'd learned all those years ago, that the limitations we accept are often the ones we impose on ourselves, that technology is powerful, but understanding is eternal, that the mist doesn't hide the truth. It reveals it, if you're brave enough to look. One morning, a young woman showed up at the school. She was 22, Army National Guard, and she carried a rifle case that looked like it had seen better days. Maya was adjusting targets on the range when the woman approached. "Ma'am, I'm Private Kelsey Martinez. I heard about your school from my uncle. He trained with you at Coronado 5 years ago." Maya turned, studied the young woman. She had the look, that mixture of determination and uncertainty that Maya recognized in herself decades earlier. "What can I do for you, Private?" Kelsey set down the rifle case and opened it. Inside was an old Springfield M1903, the kind of rifle American snipers had used in World War I. The wood was worn but carefully maintained. The metal showed its age but was rust-free. "This was my great-grandfather's rifle. He carried it at Belleau Wood. I want to learn to shoot it the way he did, the way you shoot. Not with computers or fancy scopes, but with skill." Maya looked at the rifle, then at Kelsey, and saw herself 30 years earlier. Same determination, same respect for history, same belief that the old ways still mattered. "You know the M1903 doesn't have the range or power of modern sniper systems, right? You know that iron sights are considered obsolete?" "Yes, ma'am. But my great-grandfather made shots at 600 yards with this rifle in combat. If he could do it, I can learn to do it." Maya smiled, the kind of smile that came from recognition, from seeing the cycle continue. "All right, Private, let's start with the fundamentals. First lesson, the rifle doesn't make the shooter. The shooter makes the rifle. Everything else is just noise." Kelsey's face lit up. "Thank you, ma'am." As they walked toward the range together, the mist began to roll in from the ocean, thick and white, turning the world into a canvas of possibility. Maya looked up at it and felt her father's presence, heard his voice one more time. "The mist doesn't hide you, Maya. It reveals who you really are. And she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly who she was meant to be. A warrior, a teacher, a bridge between the past and the future, a mist walker. Years from now, when people told stories about the woman who made the ghost shot, who taught a generation of snipers that excellence transcends equipment, they would debate whether it was skill or instinct, technology or tradition, that made her great. But those who knew her, who learned from her, understood the truth. It was never about the rifle. It was about the person holding it, and what they chose to believe was possible. Maya Blackwood proved that courage doesn't require the latest equipment, that mastery is built on fundamentals, and that sometimes the old ways endure because they reveal something essential about human potential. She proved that when the world tells you something is impossible, the only question that matters is, do you believe them, or do you trust yourself? And on foggy mornings, when the mist rolled through the forests of Washington, if you listened carefully, you could almost hear the sound of an old M1 Garand firing in the distance, each shot a reminder that true excellence never goes out of style.